There is nothing more painful than watching a star, once a symbol of hope for millions, slowly fade away. This is the story of Can Yaman, who is now facing the darkest moment of his life. For years, he was the dream man, shielded by his looks, charisma, and on-screen success. But that shield has collapsed. Personal mistakes, the choice of a partner who weakens rather than supports him, along with the shadow of addictions and toxic friendships, have started to reveal his true face. His relationship with Sarah, which should have been a support, has turned into a burden dragging him down. Not even his mother Guldem can intervene against this bond. Around Can, a circle of supposed friends, like Susana and Roberto, actually feed his weaknesses. Between parties, rumors, and headlines, the actor's image keeps deteriorating. His biggest problem is pride. He refuses to admit mistakes and continues down the same path toward the abyss. Alcohol, drugs, and false friendships have trapped him in a spiral from which he doesn't seem willing to escape. What hurts most is that all of this is happening in front of his real fans, who watch him lose himself without being able to help. The risk is evident. Directors and producers no longer trust him. Projects decrease, and his fan base begins to drift away. The fall will be slow but inevitable until his inner storm overwhelms him. Is there a way out? Yes, but only if he chooses to accept his mistakes, distance himself from those who harm him, and free himself from his addictions. However, today he remains stubborn and blind to reality. That's why many of his fans have already understood Can Yaman will not change, and his star is fading. Demet Özdemir, on the other hand, has always been perceived as strong and independent, with a career path very different from many colleagues consumed by fame. Yet, she has also faced criticism, suspicions, and rumors, some entirely unfounded, others fueled by sensationalist press. While Can seems trapped in a maze of excesses and bad influences, Demet presents another image, someone who, even under pressure, strives to stay calm, protect her reputation, and move forward with determination. Some interpret her prolonged silence as a tactic to safeguard her private life. I see it as a sign of maturity. Enduring attacks, malicious comments, and attempts to use her name in stories that don't belong to her is no easy task. Demet chose silence when many expected a strong reaction, and that choice, criticized by some, reveals an emotional intelligence few appreciate. Recently, her name has often been linked to Can Yaman, increasing the pressure. Some said this closeness created family tensions. Others thought her reserve proved she wanted to avoid public fights. For me, her strength lies precisely in not letting herself be dragged into the noise. The contrast is evident. Can is accused of arrogance, while she is praised for sobriety. Of course, Demet also has flaws. Her silence can be mistaken for coldness, her reserve for indifference, but I see it as her greatest strength, proving you can resist with elegance, move forward without crushing others, and shine without unnecessary noise. Ultimately, Demet Özdemir is not just a talented actress. She is a woman who has managed to stand firm in an environment that devours those who are not strong enough. Her critics will keep talking, but the truth is, she never allowed herself to be manipulated nor let her dignity be questioned. To me, Demet divides because she represents what many refuse to accept. A woman who, with flaws and contradictions, dares to decide for herself. She is not perfect and never will be, but that is precisely her essence. Some comments mention that her closeness to controversial people only drags her further into a whirlwind of suspicion. It is not that Demet doesn't have the right to live her private life, but when those personal choices end up damaging her public image, the result is inevitable: disappointment. And I'm not talking about envy, as some staunch defenders claim, but about simple reality. The people who admired her feel betrayed because they expected consistency between her words and her actions. What hurts me most is imagining how this impacts her family. Some point out that Khan's mother suffers for her son. In Demet's case, I think of how her close ones must feel seeing her constantly caught in criticism and media disputes. She, who once conveyed freshness and positive energy, now seems surrounded by a grey cloud that dims her light. And as some say, it is not about losing talent, because that remains, but about wasting it in a context that does not help her. And yet, I want to be fair. There are still people who believe in her, who defend her freedom to choose, who insist that behind all this chaos, the authentic Demet still exists, the one who made millions fall in love with her charisma. That part of her audience does not give up and encourages her not to sink. And I ask myself, will she be able to listen to those voices and reconnect with the best version of herself? Or will she continue acting like someone who covers their eyes not to see reality, moving toward a cliff from which it will be hard to return? Deep down, I believe Demet still has a chance. The difference between her and Khan is that her fall doesn't seem definitive. There is still time to change direction, to recover that powerful image she once had. But that change won't come if she keeps surrounding herself with relationships and decisions that drag her further down. Talent is not enough. Beauty is not enough. Character is needed, and true character is shown in moments of crisis. That is why my opinion is clear. Demet Özdemir must remember who she is and where she comes from. She must close her ears to those who flatter her without measure and open her eyes to what really matters: her art, her dignity, the trust of an audience that, though wounded, still waits for her. Because in the end, time does not forgive, and fans' affection is not eternal. If she wants to continue being a symbol, she will have to wake up from this labyrinth and return to being that strong, radiant woman that so many still keep in their memory.